Hello and welcome to episode number 70 of the Wise Guys podcast. I'm John Tortorelli with my co-host Brennan Capozziello and Justin Reich, who makes his highly anticipated return following a pretty rough game for his 49ers. Today we'll be discussing a lot of huge news in the NFL. The Broncos might have gotten somebody who can save them, and the same could be said for our Houston Texans. If you're new around here, my boy BC to my left is not a big Texans guy. We'll see what he has to say and much more after the championship round of the NFL playoffs. We have our Super Bowl team set. J-Ray, just a little bit of an introduction. How you feeling, man? We got the Knicks and the Lakers right now. LeBron, 100-some-odd points away from Kareem's scoring record. What is your mental state currently, and what's on the agenda?
Okay, my mental state, when I saw LeBron take a day off from playing the Brooklyn Nets, I was like, man, this guy's gonna drop. How much is he behind from the record?
He was 117 coming into today.
Yeah, I was like, if imagine this guy just goes into the Garden and drops a 100-point game on our heads. That would have been the icing on the cake for us Knick fans that get tortured every time LeBron steps foot in the Garden. But I'm feeling good ultimately. I'm not as sad about the 49ers exit because I feel like it was just bad luck and things out of their control. So don't feel so bad for me. They'll be back next year and they'll be all right. I miss you guys though. I'm sorry I missed episode number 69.
Gronk's favorite number, J-Ray. Someone that's going to make his return probably next season. Who knows? So the
To the
biggest
Buffalo
news,
Bills.
the top news before we jump down today, the Denver Broncos, fellas, have tried to do a lot of things this offseason. They're focused on Demeco Ryans. At one point, they were trying to get Jim Harbaugh. And then they're negotiating a deal with Sean Payton. That didn't work out. They tried Demeco Ryans at one point. He denied them before going to Houston. And finally, the New Orleans Saints, fellas, have made a trade. A pretty important one for the Denver Broncos, allowing them to hire Sean Payton, the Super Bowl winning future Hall of Fame head coach. And in return, the Broncos will be getting a third-round pick from 2024 with his services. The Saints will be getting a 2023 first and a 2024 second. And to simplify that, the first-round pick they got for Bradley Chubb, that looks like a pretty good deal now. That was paired alongside a second for for Sean Payton. I'm mixing up his name with George Patton, his new fella, and a third-round pick. Bren, when you looked at Russell Wilson this last season and everything that went on with Nathaniel Hackett, can Sean Payton turn around the Denver Broncos? And with this current roster, what can we expect from the Broncos going to next season? What is the realistic expectation?
Well, first off, you answered a question that I was gonna have was that because when this trade happened or whatever, I remembered I was like I saw a first round pick for 2023 and I remembered, wait, the Broncos just made a massive trade with the Seattle Seahawks and I know they gave away their first round pick and then you just jogged my memory. They traded away Bradley Chubb and got a first round pick from the Dolphins. So that was this first round pick. So they've had a lot of first round picks. Giving a lot of them away. So they're going all in. And as for your question about can Sean Payton fix Russell Wilson, I've been pretty negative. I've been pretty much saying like if I was Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton that I would stay away. Like this is one of the worst free agent classes for head coaches, if you want to say. I don't like really any of the teams. Since the Cowboys and the Chargers basically locked up and said, no, McCarthy and Staley are staying. But we're here. Sean Payton is the head coach. I saw a report, I guess, I think it was Rappaport, Ian Rappaport, that said, like, I guess their first choice was Demeco Ryans and then Demeco said, no, I'm going to Texans. Then they wanted to quietly try and get Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh said no. And then they went with Sean Payton, I guess. I don't know if that's true. But again, that's like their fourth option, if that is true. That's all hearsay. But as now, Sean Payton being the head coach for the Denver Broncos, can he fix Russell Wilson? I'm gonna say I'm gonna give Russell a little bit of a pass for last season. Then I'm not gonna be as harsh as I was before. I'm not gonna let last season fool me. I think it was a mixture of injuries, uh, a
New
new
scheme.
place, new team, new coaching staff, Nathaniel Hackett not being a head coach material, an offensive scheme that maybe didn't mix with him, or maybe him having too much power and calling way too many of his own plays, because we know that controversy with the Pete Carroll. Whatever the case may be, you got Sean Payton now, and Sean Payton has proven to be an offensive genius. Him and Drew Brees, their history is well documented, how many records they broke, offensive yards. Uh, it's insane. So can Russell get back to that? I think that he can. I'm going to put my faith in Russell Wilson. I'm going to put my faith in Sean Payton, who's a Super Bowl head coach. And I think if Jerry Jeudy is healthy, which he hasn't really been the last couple of seasons, Cortland Sutton is healthy. Tim Patrick comes back from his torn ACL, whatever he's going to be able to be next year.
Javonte
That tight end
Williams.
that you like, John, I forgot his name, Udrick,
Greg
the tight
Dulcich.
end for Duelich, there you go. Yeah, and Javonte Williams, who went down early in the season, they can get those guys back. We know what the defense can give you. The defense is elite. It's great in pass coverage. But that offense just needs its work, and I think Sean Payton's going to work some magic. I don't know. I would imagine their cap flexibility is not very kind. Their draft capital is obviously not very good because of all these moves that they've made. So they're kind of strapped, I guess. They would be stuck right now in their position of the team that they can go ahead and go forward with. Maybe they can make a couple of veteran ads here and there, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to put my faith in them, though.
You know what a difference a head coach can make. Going into the season, we all had high hopes for the Broncos. You know, just acquiring Russ. Thought that this roster was possibly a quarterback away from being a contender at least. And they showed some at least games against Kansas City where I think it was one game against Kansas City where things were pretty tight, and they played
Well,
some
both,
close.
both Justin,
Both
both
it was
games were
both
both
games, yeah.
games were
So
tight. Yeah.
they played them pretty tight, and you know when you're playing in that division, the AFC West, it's you're playing to beat Kansas City. You know it's not about everybody else; it's playing to beat Kansas City. And once you show that you can do that, then you could possibly take that next step. And it just seemed like while we thought this team was a quarterback away, we didn't realize that the head coach that they hired was not exactly ready for the job. And I'm not trying to hammer on Nathaniel Hackett, but some people just aren't ready for it. And plus, I guess they just didn't have that chemistry in the locker room. Things just weren't fixed up. There was a lot of stories coming out of Denver just about Russell Wilson alone, and it was just off. And Russell Wilson, the Russ that we saw in Seattle, was an MVP candidate, putting up numbers, can lead a team, and we kind of lost that, and it made me question: Is Russ broken? You know what happened this year? And I guess you're right, Brandon. You probably are that a lot of things just went wrong. The new scheme, new coach, new city. When you go into, he played. How long was he in Seattle? Over at least a decade, right?
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, 10 years in Seattle, and then you go to a new spot. Sometimes, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but when you add in a coach like Sean Payton and all the things that he's done, all the things that he's established and accomplished in his career, that's the perfect coach to help turn around your franchise. A franchise that since Peyton Manning has left has been looking for that head coach, looking for that quarterback to guide them. And I think they found their guy. I think Russ wanted him too. So I think teams like Arizona completely whiffed at a big opportunity to possibly change the course of your franchise. But this is a big win for Denver. No matter what they had to give up to get him, this is a head coach that, if he's all in, which I'm more than positive that he is, can make an instant impact and can catapult your team to it's one of those worst to first kind of stories. Not saying they will be first, but they'll definitely have the capability to do so.
This was an A plus by the Denver Broncos. And to answer the Russell Wilson question and the fall off from his years in Seattle, it's quite straightforward. Nathaniel Hackett couldn't redesign his offense to support Russ properly. Russ is not someone that sees the middle of the field well. It's something we've talked about a little bit with Kyler Murray. When you have a specific quarterback that is limited, you need to cater to their strengths. And in Denver, I felt like Nathaniel Hackett as a play caller wasn't even that bad, but we all knew Hackett was not hired to coach Russell Wilson. It was another Hall of Fame quarterback. Well, maybe we'll see with Russ. This is exactly what you need to get him back on track. Somebody that in New Orleans, with Jameis Winston, had that team in the playoff mix up until the end of the season, with Winston tearing his ACL, with no weapons in 2021. Payton was top 5, top 7 coach, and there's no two ways about it. To Britain, one of the very best quarterback heroes in NFL history, to go alongside Javonte Williams, who was supposed to be one of their 2 biggest weapons last year. You hope with Javonte, by the second half of the season, you'll see him come on the same way we did with Cam Akers. But it's tough to know because oftentimes with these running backs, they need 2 years. So that's my biggest concern. But when talking about the supporting cast, it's good enough. There's no glaring hole. You get Garrett Bowles back, who was starting the second half of the season. All things considered, this is the ultimate put up or shut up time for Russell Wilson, because you have the head coach in a division where whoever the Raiders quarterback next year and Justin Herbert, they won't really be able to say the same. You have a top 5 defense. You have a decent offensive line. It's not above average, but it's competent. And you have, when healthy, some of the better weapons in football. If you're between Demeco Ryans, the defensive coordinator, who may or may not get the right play caller, Jim Harbaugh, who probably wasn't even that interested in the first place, or Sean Payton, this was the perfect way to go. And yeah, I'm giving this an A+. What would you guys grade it? Because maybe I'm looking at this with the rose-colored glasses.
No, I mean, no, I think, yeah, A+. I agree. I don't think you are, because I think you go get a Super Bowl head coach. Like everything everybody said basically is this is supposed to be a culture changing move. So the Broncos' expectations next year should be Super Bowls. Should be the Super Bowl, I should say. Or I mean Super Bowls, because you got years. You got Sean Payton signed on for years. You got Russell signed on for that massive contract. So let's go. Or as the Broncos fans say, or not fans, Russell Wilson says, let's ride.
That's right. Yeah, Broncos country should be excited for this. So yeah, it's a clean sweep with the A+ here. Like Brandon said, this is a complete culture change for Denver. This is something completely new. A coach that has full control of the roster. He's not butting heads with anybody upstairs. This is his team, and he's gonna run it how he sees fit. Brandon was right. You said it earlier in the season. Your concerns about the Saints with Dennis Allen as their head coach, transitioning from Peyton to another one, and it clearly showed. So nobody ever questioned how good Sean Payton was as a head coach, and we all know what he did with the Saints. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like you said, this team should be contending next year. No excuse now. You got the head coach. You got a full offseason of work. Like you said, Broncos country, it's time to ride.
You want to know what could also be riding in Denver? Vic Fangio. It was reported Vic will be going to Miami, which sounded pretty good for the Dolphins. And now it's seeming like, pen hasn't been put to paper yet. And Vic Fangio could perhaps, while he's been rumored to sign with the Dolphins, could be talking with the Broncos. Would he be willing to go back to Denver? I'm not quite sure, but one thing I do know is that Vic Fangio probably would rather be a defensive coordinator and would enjoy going back to that team with a new coaching staff, new ownership, and one of the youngest defenses that is quickly rising. Justin Simmons, Patrick Surtain, the secondary is special. It's the perfect group, I think, for his defense to shine.
I mean, as a Patriots fan, I'd like him to go to the AFC West. Just a suggestion.
I don't blame you.
Values, my suggestion. Just go ahead. Go with Sean Payton. It's fine.
I mean, the only thing from taking fandom out of it, Vic Fangio to Miami was a home run. That was a home run hit for them. But especially from Mike McDaniel, just focusing solely on the offense, having another head coach of the defense really out there. So if they really miss out on that, and he ends up finding his way to Denver, Miami's going to be in a little bit of a pickle because they thought they had something secured.
I think it's a matter of who's willing to put more money on the table, Jay Wright. And whoever, between the two ownership groups, pays more, my bet would probably be on the Broncos when they make a move against Sean Payton. I mean, you give up a first round pick, but you get an elite offensive mind, a top 5 coach, and perhaps one of the very best defensive coordinators. That to
Mhm.
me is worth 2 or 3 first round picks. We talked about the Chargers. You could have a really good roster. The Broncos roster is not on the level of the Chargers, but it doesn't have any holes per se. So to get the coaches next year, the expectation is not only the playoffs, it's 12 wins in my eyes. But we'll really have to see what Javante looks like because that to me is probably the biggest weapon in that offense.
And you have to hit on those late round picks that you still do have. That's
Yeah.
where you have to be special, because that's where the Rams weren't as special with the F them picks mentality. Is kind of what the Broncos are doing too. So you have to hit on those late round picks, those culture guys that you can keep.
So I have a question for you guys before we talk about the next team. Russell Wilson was a bottom 5 quarterback this last season. Given how poor he played, where would you rank him, projecting the possibility with Sean Payton? If I name you some quarterbacks in the top 10, the top 15 realm, you ready?
We're projecting.
The possibility. The potential, I guess, is the better word here.
Okay.
For this next year.
Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson, who's the better quarterback?
Next year, I'm taking Lamar.
Give me Russell Wilson.
Matthew Stafford.
Give me Stafford.
Give me Russ.
I'm taking Stafford. Will Russell Wilson next season be better than Geno Smith?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No hesitation there,
No,
man?
no hesitation at all.
Are you sure?
This isn't a knock on Geno Smith. What a spectacular season he did have, but it's hard for me to believe that this isn't one of those like Case Keenum kind of runs with the Vikings, and then next time you see him, it's not the same quarterback. I would not be surprised if I'm not saying go back to how he was with the Jets, but regress a bit. That's
Yeah.
it. I can't see it keeping up that same level. He was a top 10 quarterback this year.
100% agree.
Wow. I personally think Geno was so good in the first half of the season. The Case Keenum thing, fine. He did lead his team. He helped lead his team to the NFC Championship game. We've got a couple more names here. Daniel Jones or Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson. Now that's no hesitation for me.
This one's tough for me for the simple fact
It's
that I got enough
crazy.
respect. No, it's not a Daniel Jones thing. It's a respect for Brian Dable, where I'm not saying Daniel Jones is Josh Allen, but comparing their first year in a system with Dable, another year for Daniel Jones, anticipating they get more weapons, and if he's progressing, it's a tough one. I'll out of respect, I'm going to say Russ.
Derek Carr or Russell Wilson, who will be better?
Russ.
Not knowing where Carr's going to be.
Yeah, well, I don't know what Carr is going to be, so I'm going to say Russ.
I'm not going to say him.
I'm assuming Carr's in the NFC South.
Who is him?
Dak Prescott or Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson.
Really? I'm surprised by that answer.
Well, Dak's outside my top 10.
I'm gonna take Dak.
I'm taking Russ. Last name, Jared Goff.
Russ.
I'm taking Goff as well, dude. The Lions
the
litany of
weapons?
weapons, Jameson Williams in year 2, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's so far ahead of what the Broncos have. When you look at the production, I think Goff's going to throw for 4,400 yards again. And Wilson, will he get back to that level? I'm not quite sure. Next, head coaching hire. Big time news in Houston. While the Rockets this year have struggled everywhere, it feels like, there is some good news in H-Town. And it's that the former Pro Bowl linebacker and now budding defensive assistant coach Demeco Ryans has signed a 6-year contract in Houston. A couple weeks ago, when the Texans fired Lovie Smith, I said, why would I want to go here from Demeco Ryans? After the fact they literally fired back-to-back minority head coaches in as many seasons, that's a pretty horrible look. But Demeco in San Francisco had Charvarius Ward and DeMondre Lenore. And that quarterback duo was unbelievable in press man-to-man coverage. Up until his game versus the Eagles, but not really. Jalen Hurts at 120 passing yards. The 49ers defense literally got better after losing Robert Saleh, who was before one of the best defensive assistant coaches. And when it comes to culture building, J-Rad, there's few former players and assistants who bring the level of energy and just, I guess, composure Ryans does. For the Texans, what would you grade this, and do you think this can be the type of head coach that can turn their franchise around? And with this defense, Derek Stingley, upcoming top 3 pick, and the Browns selection, how does it feel right now for a Texans fan? What do you think about this move?
Oh, well, this is the time to start making moves. Obviously, the biggest question on this team remains is who's going to be the guy under center for the near future. Or forget the near future, but for all these years for the next decade, you're trying to find a guy, and they have the pick to see if maybe one of those young guys in the draft will be that guy. But as far as this head coaching hire goes, I think it's a good one. Did a great job with the 49er defense. Now, granted, he was given a glutton of talent on the defensive side of the ball, but it's kind of an awesome story. He's going back to where he started his career, where he won Defensive Rookie of the Year back in the day, and he did his own thing. It's a 6-year deal, which I think is the thing that stands out to me the most. I've always said that teams give up on things far too quickly, and we're looking at a team that literally just fired 2 coaches in back-to-back seasons. Now you got to ride with this guy. You have to you got to see the process through. Got to let him do his job. Let him find his quarterback. Let him find his coaches and build this team. You can't give up if you go next year and you win 4 or 5 games. You got to continue to grow with it, because how else are you going to build a franchise if you just keep, tossing head coaches back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? There's not a recipe for success. I think this is a cornerstone kind of move for the Texans here. It's kind of reminds me a little bit of MCDC in Detroit, the kind of guy that can really make an impact. I think Houston really struck gold with this one, and we've been hard on them about some moves that they've made in the past, but for once, I'm going to give them their flowers, and I really hope that Demeco Ryans does his thing there in Houston, because this is a team that has been, so close just not too long ago with Deshaun Watson and D-Hop, and they felt like their future was set out for them, and then all of a sudden it's ripped away. So I really hope that he does turn this team around. I believe he will.
One of the last words you said there, Justin. It's a 4-letter word, but it's probably one of the most powerful words in the world. Hope. That's what the Texans fans have, is hope. This is a great move. I echo basically all of Justin's sentiments, except for a couple where he said he does believe that he can get the job done in the next 6 years, and stuff like that. It's hard for me to see it just because of their starting point right now, of how behind the 8 ball they are compared to all, especially they're in the AFC, dude. Have you seen the AFC got lately, guys? Have you seen it?
Pretty good quarterbacks, bro.
They also play in the
pretty
AFC
freaking good
South.
quarterbacks.
If there's
Justin.
any division for them,
It doesn't matter, dude. Trevor Lawrence, that's his division now, man. That's his division now.
Are we sure about that?
100%.
Get into this, because I have an epiphany with these Texans that's going to affect Trevor Lawrence.
What's your epiphany?
Demeco Ryans is going to be the next Mike Vrabel hire, and this Texans defense is going to be lights out in 2 or 3 years. They have $39 million in cap space, and they finally have the tone setter. This is going to re-energize the fan base, but you know what it's also going to do?
John,
it's going to maximize the defensive personnel. I am telling you right now, this Texans defense is going to restore order. What we saw a little bit over a decade ago when I first started watching football, Demeco Ryans was one of the best defensive coaching hires I've seen in the last 5 years. And now, I'm a little bit lower on going the defensive coach route. That being said, I think Demeco Ryans was a home run hit here. He's going to start to interview some people from the 49ers staff on the offense side of the ball.
Hello, can I respond to your statement?
Yeah, go for it.
Now respond to your statement about the Houston Texans. You're about to just go on when you interrupted me. Your Houston Texans, this defense is going to be a stud. I can say all those points about the Jacksonville Jaguars, my friend. But on the other side of the ball, bringing in Dougie P, the offensive genius, and how he elevates the offensive talent of that team, which we have already seen firsthand. Something that you're talking about that is a question mark. We have yet to see it, my friend. The Jaguars, we have seen it with our own two eyes. Everybody's seen it. The jump from year 1 to year 2 with Dougie P. Oh, and guess what? They're not done either. Because guess who's coming to the Jacksonville Jaguars next year? A true number 1 wide receiver in Calvin Ridley. And they still have the draft. They still have free agency as well. Where have you been? The where the Jaguars are, the Texans are like 3 or 4 steps behind them. First off, they have to find their quarterback. The Jaguars have done the hardest job, right, guys? They found their quarterback and they got their head coach. Hardest job. The Texans, they have their head coach. We believe they have their head coach. Now, guess what? You have to do the other job. You have to find your quarterback.
But you know what, Brandon? I can't say, this Houston Texans team is so far behind the 8 ball because I just look back 2 years ago at the Jaguars and look at their team this year as opposed to where they were just 2 years ago.
No, but Justin, because of what I just said, because they found their quarterback, which is very hard to do, and they found their head coach because they effed it. Let's be honest with the Urban Meyer. They were about to screw Trevor Lawrence in his career. They realized their mistake, got his ass out of there, brought in Dougie P, and now they're elevating. You see it, and we all believe they're probably going to win the AFC South next year and be probably.
And that's what I'm saying. Think about that.
Now the Texans have found their head coach, but now they have to do a hard job, which is find their quarterback. Do we believe in Bryce? I always forget his name. John, help me. Bryce Young, right? Bryce Young. Do we believe in CJ Stroud? Do we believe in these guys to be the franchise quarterback? We don't know. These are question marks that we have to have answered. That's all I'm saying.
No, you're right. You're right.
You know what though, Brandon?
This takes one draft pick that can absolutely change the course,
This Texans franchise has flexibility. The Jaguars have negative $22 million in cap space, so this existing team, that's what they're rocking with. And I love the offense, but the defense still has a ton of work. So the reason I was kind of going that I'm sorry about that, tangent before was because the Titans every single year exceed our expectations. They're gritty, they know exactly who they are, and they have one of the strongest cultures. Through all of the injuries, Taylor Lewan at left tackle, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, they always find a way to be so competitive. With Demeco Ryans, I guess I'm looking at him here with the rose-colored glasses, but the biggest thing they needed was a tone setter, and I think this is the perfect hire almost because of all that he's shown. And you listen to anyone that's worked around Demeco Ryans, he sounds and he seems like the next up-and-coming awesome defensive-oriented head coach. The bigger thing here is going to be capitalizing, like you said, on offensive mind. He's already started to get into the works with some of the 49ers assistants on their staff that he's worked with. And I do think this year in the draft, it's going to be a huge question. Do they go up Bryce Young with the 2nd overall pick, or do they trend the route of Jalen Carter, who's awesome out of Georgia? I think he's going to be an absolute game wrecker. Or Will Anderson, a smaller edge.
Or is Bryce Young going to even be at the number 2 overall pick?
Well, the Colts trade up because their team that wants a quarterback.
Yep.
With the Bears.
All these question marks with you. But yeah, I do want to say that I hope you guys heard me when I said I agree with all of Justin's sentiments about how I believe Demeco Ryans is a great hire, and that I said they filled that void, which is finding the head coach. They found that void. I'm talking about now they have to find the void of the quarterback, which is very hard to do. We just can go on a tangent about how maybe they don't even get the quarterback that they want in the draft because of other circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of have a little bit part of my epiphany here. The Texans have the 2nd pick and the 12th pick. I know Justin, as a Florida Gators fan, is not a big Anthony Richardson guy. But what I think is going to go down the draft, Bryce Young goes number 1 overall to the Colts, who trade up to get him. And at number 2, we don't see this very often. We usually do not. The Giants went the inverse route in 2019. The Texans, I think, are going to go Jalen Carter at the 2nd overall pick, stud switchblade defensive end out of Georgia. And then at 12, with that Browns pick, They're taking Anthony Richardson in the top 15, Justin. And I know you're going to roll your eyes here. I'm telling you right now, Anthony Richardson's one of the best athletes I've seen coming out of the draft. And with the floor that he is such a good athlete and such a good floor raiser, much like Justin Fields last year, with the way the Texans want to play offensively, running the football, he's going to set them, like Justin Fields, the level of explosive plays. And Justin Fields one of the 5 worst passers in football, but he was so good on the ground and so dynamic that it really unlocked everything in that running game. With the Texans, Dameon Pierce, he missed the end of the season. I think the foundation here is going to be rock strong. They definitely need to work more and more on the offensive line to really get to the level they're going to want to be at, but they've got time, they've got cap space, they have a young up-and-coming head coach who I believe is going to be really good.
You know, I'm happy you said time, because if you're going to draft Anthony Richardson, that's what you're going to need. You're going to need a lot of time. Have you ever taken the time to look at his stats in college?
Yeah.
Are you impressed?
He only had 1 year starting, sub 60% completion percentage. But
What'd you think of his 1 year starting?
The highs were incredibly mesmerizing, Justin.
Okay.
And the struggles with him are things we typically see with younger quarterbacks. Some of it can be developed, some of it can. Some of it is mass producing accurate throws. That can be developed to a certain degree. Others, it's pocket feel. And if you don't have the best pocket feel like Anderson, maybe you're taking quarterback sacks. That's something we don't see developed as much. Oftentimes, you either have that or you don't. Richardson has a special arm, and he can make high-level throws. It's a matter of finding that consistency, the same way Josh Allen did, Lamar to a degree, Jalen Hurts. I think for somebody that had such little reps in college, if he's a really good runner early, as the athleticism wanes later on in his career, he improves the arm. I mean, I think Anthony Richardson's going to go in the top 15, and for a team that wants to play that style, kind of like the Bears, old school with a defensive-oriented head coach that's really good, that's kind of the right pathway to me.
You know what? That's all fine and dandy and all that, but that's just know that that's such a big project to take on, because if you're going to draft a quarterback with that kind of experience in college, it's not like you're drafting a 4-year starter who's been there, done that, who has played in big moments, has played in championship games. No, you're not doing that. You're drafting. I mean, Zach Wilson had way more experience coming out of BYU. Guys like even Josh Rosen had way more experience. Sam Darnold's and those guys. This is a massive project. So if you're going to go out there and you're going to draft him, fine. That's cool. But you most definitely have to bring in a veteran QB. You can't just, I don't know who's out there. I'm sure Derek Carr's definitely off the table. He probably wants to go to a team where he can compete and win playoff games.
No, Justin, you're more of a college football guy than me. But like to me, it just seems like these draft classes, they put people in the first round now that really don't deserve it. Like I thought that your stock in the draft goes with how you play on the field, not your potential or your talent.
Well, that's the problem.
On the field, you know what I mean?
That's the problem. Everybody's glossing about how these guys are throwing in t-shirts and shorts with no pressure and coverage. You know, like I'm not gonna blow myself.
Also,
up.
John,
But I can throw a ball into a corner. I'm not listen, I'm making it very, very clear. I am not saying I am anywhere on this level, but I play the accuracy game with all the time. I could throw a ball in a bucket, but the thing is, bro, my whole point is, if I'm not, guess what? If I had pads on and I have 300-pounders rushing at me, yo, I'm throwing that ball straight in the freaking dirt. I ain't playing this game. This is a different game. Once you get into the NFL, the speed is so different. So those guys that dominated in college, it's a totally different game in the NFL. So listen, I won't root against anybody, especially anybody coming out of the draft. Yo, I wish you guys all the best. And obviously, it doesn't always work out that way. Not everybody's going to succeed in the L. But I hope that he does. I'm not saying this guy's going to wet the bed. I really hope he succeeds. If he does even get drafted to Houston, I hope he takes that franchise to new heights. But I really can't say, yo, this is the guy. Brandon said it. Yo, they just elevate these quarterbacks so much. They just find anybody to say, oh, this guy could have done this. This guy could have done that. No, these franchise guys don't come around like that. It takes years. It takes hits. It takes misses to find your guy. I mean, right now, I'm a New England fan. We have Mac Jones, and we're still questioning whether he is our guy. And some other teams don't know. They draft guys that are absolute mistakes. Then they're stuck going the veteran quarterback route over and over and over again. Like, it's so tough to find a quarterback in this league that's gonna sustain you success. Look at the Colts. They lose Andrew Luck and have been in this abyss of quarterbacks, going with Jacoby Brissett, now Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz. You got Sam Ellinger. Now you have Matt Ryan. All these guys, they just great quarterbacks don't come around as often. If you miss that window, you miss it. And that's the problem. So there's these projects in the draft. It just doesn't always work out. No. So you have to find a sure thing. And quite frankly, I don't know if anybody's a sure thing.
There is no. The hardest thing in sports is drafting a quarterback. Because Brand talked before about the most productive. Mac was highly productive his last year at Alabama. And when you look back at the quarterbacks taken in the first round, I think Mac could be the fourth one. I would take Trey Lance before him because Trey Lance has so much potential. And for these teams that are taking guys in the top 10, you want to take a swing for the fences because every year you see Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen in the AFC Championship game. In the NFC Championship game, the teams like the Niners and the Eagles have quarterbacks on rookie contracts that are not top 10 guys, but the teams around them are so great because those teams, let's say how it is, they scout those guys, they got a little bit lucky that they're on the board for them, and then with how well they've played, how well they've developed, they've been just good enough with so much flexibility in the cap thanks to not having to pay a quarterback, the team has been able to carry them. So I understand most of these quarterbacks are not, exact, how do I word it? None of them are complete, usually, more often than not. Matthew Stafford wasn't a complete player coming out of Georgia. It's all about developing them and having the right staff so that you can really maximize their skill set. Because I hear often the OTAs thing, Zach Wilson or the pro day. Zach Wilson can rip off the rest. No, Zach Wilson was a great quarterback prospect. In New York, he was not developed properly. He was thrown out to the Wolves, and he lost his confidence. If you're a quarterback without confidence, questioning your game, running around for days in the pocket, your entire line's hurt, and guess what? You lose a running back who's the self-generator of all these explosive plays. Of course, Zach Wilson's going to look like trash. No one should have expected him to succeed. It's just a matter of, at a pro day, you see really good things, you have conversations with the quarterback, then further back up your belief on him. And if you have concerns about a quarterback, the pro day is not going to change your opinion. If you believe in a quarterback, the pro day is probably not going to change an opinion. I feel like that often gets misunderstood. And we use that analogy because, you see the Tulsi prospect that, produced a lot in college, has a great pro day, like Malik Willis, they go crazy. I don't know. Malik Willis fell the third round. Clearly the pro did not help his draft stock at all.
No. It's more of a show now. Just entertainment.
Speaking of shows, we had a pretty good one on Sunday night. The Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. I had heard Chris Jones in an interview coming to this game refer to the stadium as Burrowhead Stadium, which was funny to me. My brother's a Chiefs fan. We all root for the Chiefs usually because the Steelers, of course, don't go very far in the playoffs now. And, Arrowhead Stadium's the name of it. And then I saw the video of their Cincinnati mayor going, yeah, whatever he was saying, a whole speech to prepare the Bengals for this game. And the Bengals lost. It was a confusing game of sorts. BC, coming in, you and I both had the Bengals winning, even if Patrick Mahomes was healthy. He wasn't. And he found a way. Hit us with it, man. Where did we go wrong? What were the critical missteps in our evaluation? What were your biggest takeaways from this game leading into this Chiefs Super Bowl matchup with Andy Reid going up against Philadelphia?
Well, I guess our critical error was the overlooking of basically what determined this game, which was the trenches, both on the offensive side and the defensive side. The Kansas City Chiefs dominated on both sides of the football. The offensive side, a little bit less, but the defensive side, Jesus Christ. Uh, the KC defense hit Burrow 12 times. They sacked him 5 times. Frank Clark and Chris Jones, both of them had outstanding games. The stars came out to play, and for me, I thought because of last year they were able to overcome it. This year they weren't able to overcome it. The offensive line issues, what I'm referring to. They were missing 3 of their starting offensive linemen. We already knew that. Ted Karras, their center, got banged up last game. He had to put a knee brace on. So, and we all know, I even said it myself, Buffalo's defensive line is not what Kansas City's defensive line is. Kansas City is the second best sack team in all of football, 55 sacks. They were number 2, right behind the Eagles. I should have known that going into the game, but I just thought that Burrow and the offense were going to be able to strike and complete and execute short passing plays. If they need to, take a shot down the field, you obviously put put extra guys to block for you, which they did at times. They made really good adjustments in the second quarter and on there, but the onslaught was just in key moments. Chris Jones obviously made the great play at the end of the game. That's what it came down to me. The trenches. I mean, the Chiefs offensive line, I don't know if you guys knew this, but for the entire regular season, I know John likes to, clown a little bit on Orlando Brown, the left tackle. But the Chiefs offensive line for the regular season, they were ranked number 1 in pass block win rate. Like, they are that good for a reason. And they're gonna have their hands full in about, what is it, 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks.
A week and a half, basically. Yeah, they're gonna have their hands full against the number 1 sack team in the entire NFL with Philadelphia. But for me, it just came down to the trenches, and Kansas City dominated. Chris Jones too. Yeah, him especially on the defensive line. It just came down to the trenches, and Kansas City dominated in the trenches. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the obvious, dumb, unnecessary roughness call at the end of the game. I'm not saying.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, it wasn't the wrong call, obviously. I mean, anybody with 2 eyes can see that Mahomes was clearly out of bounds and he pushed him. It was just a dumb, what do you want to call it, ignorant play. You just don't make that play. He knows that. I mean, we saw him on the sideline. His own teammate gave it to him after the game.
No, I want to talk about that in a moment.
Yeah,
believe it.
Yeah. We get it, but it's just that we know that it came. That is what it came down to, a penalty. They were going to kick they were going to kick a 55+ yard field goal if the penalty wasn't called. Harrison Butker, I don't think he makes that in that conditions yesterday. I don't. The 45-yarder, John, was real close to not being in.
He ripped that. So
it was close, bro.
Now that we've jumped into the Joseph Asai penalty and Patrick Mahomes, before you go, Jerry, I want to talk about it. So the Bengals, I felt like in this game, didn't necessarily have the beneficial whistle. We have the refs literally gifting the Chiefs an extra play on 3rd down after the play. They tried to roll it dead, they couldn't in time. We have Joe Burrow getting absolutely destroyed by Frank Clark. But of course, why would we want Cincinnati in the Super Bowl for a 2nd straight year? So they didn't call it. On the Sky Moore 25-yard punt return, setting up the Chiefs to score, the gunner gets pushed in the back. That seems to have the fields. Why do we want the Chiefs to not be in the Super Bowl? And there were a couple other plays too throughout the game. I even felt like the Joe Burrow roughing the passer, or not roughing the passer, intentional grounding call. Burrow was getting hit, and it was in line of Samaje Perine. If he wasn't getting hit, maybe it could have been somewhat on target. But I understand that. The Joseph Asai not roughing the passer, but pushing Patrick Mahomes out of bounds to set up the Chiefs to get a pretty easy field goal there, to me, was not why they lost this game. And Jermaine Pratt, after the game, had choice words for Asai as, the camera crew just pinned onto him, that same camera angle of him on the sidelines with one of his teammates consoling him. As Patriot fans, you guys remember in 2012 when Billy kind of absolutely blew a chip shot of a 30-some-odd yard field goal that would have tied the game to send the Ravens to overtime in Gillette Stadium. And I remember after the game, this is what really gave me respect for Ray Lewis. when asked about the kind of miss, Ray Lewis goes, not one play lost or won this game. Let me repeat that. Not one play won or lost this game. There's no, oh, Billy's at fault. Billy missed the kick. There's no freaking Billy missed the kick. It happens. You have to deal with it. Jermaine Pratt missed an easy tackle on Isaiah Pacheco on a third down that led to a Chiefs score. Jermaine Pratt had just as much fault in them losing that game. He played a worse game than Joseph Asai. And I come at Pratt because, as a teammate, it's easy to get emotional. I don't blame him. What Osai did was a big mistake. You can't do that in the NFL. Osai is a second-year player that played a great game, but that to me was an immature moment. He apologized after, and I respect him for that. But one thing I learned about Ray Lewis when I was a kid, your teammate may make a mistake, you better be there for them. And if Ray Lewis, a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest ever played the game, was doing that right after, that was his reaction. Billy Cundiff didn't lose the game. I missed a tackle. Joe Flacco could have made a play. We had a drop.
John.
That to me is it's what sports is about. One play at the end of the game may have been more monumental, but wasn't any less or any more important than a play in the second quarter. A missed opportunity, maybe along the way.
I got you. Hold on, Justin. You can go right after this because John brought up Ray Lewis. Now I'm going to bring up a guy who played for his team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ryan Clark, who says this a lot. I've heard him say it on First Take, and I think I've heard him say it on his Pivot podcast. You're right what you said about Ray Lewis, and it's him being a phenomenal teammate. That's why we know Ray Lewis to be possibly the greatest motivator, one of the greatest team leaders in all of sports, in football, obviously. But what Ryan Clark says, I think I'm going to butcher it, but paraphrasing. When you're my boy, and we're talking teammates, I'm with you in the public. But when the public's off, if you're wrong in the wrong, I'm going to let you know. So I agree with you. I forgot his name, but homeboy that yelled at him, you're wrong for that. You don't do that because you're in the public eye. When you're in the locker room, the media's gone. Then you can tell them how you feel. Yes, you can.
You know what? Honestly, we all know he messed up. He knew he messed up.
But if you personally feel like you want to say something, I'm just saying that's when you do it. If you want to feel that, I'm not saying how him doing that is right. I'm saying if he feels that way, then that's how he feels. I'm not going to tell another person how they feel.
Okay.
But if that's how he feels, then do it at the right time. There's a time and place for everything. You don't do it in public because that is your teammate. That is your brother in arms. You're going out there in war. So in public, when the cameras are on, when the media people are around, you're with him. When it's closed, if you got something you want to say, then you say it behind closed doors. That's how it's done. I agree with you, though. I don't agree with him doing it in general. But if he does have a problem, then that's how you handle it.
That's fair. I honestly feel like obviously that was just done in terrible taste. Obviously, I know that there's passion. Your season just ends. You're going home, and you want to point the blame at that one play. But John, you pointed it out at a missed tackle he made earlier in the game that could have prevented a Chiefs touchdown that happened later in that drive. There's a lot of things you could have pointed at that were reasons the Cincinnati Bengals didn't win. If you want to criticize officiating, okay. They were bad. They reared their ugly head. They weren't great in, I'd say, any one of the championship games on Sunday. But at the same time, the Bengals did have multiple opportunities to win that game. And I'm sorry, you go into a place like Arrowhead and you have teammates saying, oh, this is Burrowhead. That's fuel to the fire for a team. That is clear cut. That's locker room material. That's what is that saying? Damn.
Bulletin
board material right there. Like that's you best believe that the Chiefs players heard that and they knew it. Everything that was said, like you said, the Cincinnati mayor, they knew it. That's fuel to the fire for those guys. And you're not going into a place that's an easy task. No, this team has hosted an AFC title game now for 5 straight years. You're going into their territory and you're being disrespectful about it. Now, I also had Cincinnati winning that game because I was just like, man, Joe Burr, Joe Shiesty, this guy's just so cool. I couldn't see him losing in Arrowhead. I just saw him going in there getting a W, and he was damn near close. but you had the ball. You had the ball to in your hands to finish that game, and you guys didn't get it done. There were opportunities out there for Cincinnati, and they made big plays. The touchdown to T. Higgins, where he just mossed a dude. The big fourth down to Jamar Chase. What a ballsy play. They played with their hearts, man. They were playing out there, but at the same time, they just didn't make the plays when they absolutely needed to. Now, yeah, granted, Kansas City probably had a few calls go in their favor, but like I said, that wasn't the be all end all. Cincinnati just didn't make enough plays, and Kansas City did. And Patrick Mahomes on a hobbled leg, delivering an absolute dart to MVS in the end zone. Jesus Christ, like what can't that guy do? And I know on this show before, uh, it made it seem like I was critical of Patrick Mahomes, but I'll be honest, there's not one single game that I watch Patrick Mahomes and I don't get jaw dropped, at least from one play that he makes. The dude showed out. Travis Kelce did his thing. I mean, three of his top receivers go down in that game, and they still go out there to make plays. Nothing. They weren't you know, worried one bit. They went out there, they did their job, they took care of business, and rightfully so. They're going to the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, and I mean, in terms of what you said about them taking that bulletin board material, 100% they did. I mean, I think it was clear to everybody after the game if you watched the post game stuff. I mean, Travis Kelce cutting a promo like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson back in his heyday.
How could somebody not like that guy?
There's people out there that just hurt people, Justin. Hurt people. Mahomes saying his lines. Yeah, they all took it, obviously. And you're supposed to. But I will say this. In terms of, did he basically, I'm sorry I'm forgetting the guy's name, John, the guy that pushed Mahomes when he was
Joseph Asai.
Oh, Asai.
Joseph Asai. He did technically cost him. I think we can all look at it objectively. That's the last play of the game. It is the thing that ends the game.
You want to know something, though? This is where it really irritated me. The refs were quick to call a call on the Bengals, but when Orlando Brown is holding Joseph Asai in that play, it's a penalty surely. They don't call it, and then Osai is a little bit late to Mahomes. Maybe if Orlando, I saw a screenshot and a video recording, Orlando Brown was holding him as a penalty. They didn't call it. No. So
there was about 3 or 4 holding calls on the helmet catch play, and none of them got called. So it happens.
I'll be honest, and I hate to be the conspiracy guy, but I really do believe the NFL knows the matchups that they want when it comes to Championship Sunday. So some calls are just going to go a certain way. I feel like that's probably been the case for many, many years. I'm not surprised by it.
Yes and no. But in turn, this is what I want to say before we can move on to the next game. I do believe this. If both teams are fully healthy, I think the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Because if you take away the pressure from the defensive line of Kansas City, which I don't think they're going to wipe the floor with if you make that offensive line healthy, I think they're still going to get pressure, but you just decrease it. It's going to decrease, obviously, especially how Cincinnati's O-line started to play much better later in the season because the chemistry started to get better. They started to play with each other and have a lot more trust and faith. I do think Cincinnati goes in there, and I think they win if both teams are fully healthy. But that never happened, and we'll never know.
You're totally right. The Bengals lost this game because the offensive line collapsed at the end of the second half and the end of the first half. That left points and opportunities on the board. The Chiefs, what did they do? They capitalized the entire game. I owe Kansas City an apology. And Brent, you do too, honestly. When I was a kid, I was tormented by When I was a kid, I was tormented by the New England Patriots. If they didn't go to the Super Bowl, it was a shock. In 5 years as a starter, Patrick Mahomes has only went to AFC Championship games. That's all 4-year-olds in Kansas City know. 3 Super Bowls, 1 Super Bowl win, Super Bowl MVP. You better have 2 NFL MVPs. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and we've made this comparison before, it's the new Brady and Belichick. And you saw in this entire game, rookies stepping up, making huge plays. Watson interception. Isaiah Pacheco, only 26 yards for Pacheco, but when it was big time, it was big time moments. Pacheco made big time plays. And Sky Moore, man, underutilized the entire season.
I don't
I
give a
think a
crap
couple
about
of us
that.
talked him up.
I couldn't care less.
25-yard return to set up a
John, I couldn't care
game-winning
less. When you make a
score.
statement like that, I need you to clarify.
Sure.
When you make a statement that they're the New England Patriots, what do you mean by that? Please be specific, because I understand I understand what you're trying to say, but I need you to actually say it and be specific. Because when you say New England Patriots, I hope you realize that's the greatest dynasty in sports history. Okay. So be specific. I want you to just clarify what you mean by that.
The Kansas City Chiefs are the new super team that dominates the AFC. If you want to go to the Super Bowl, you have to go through them.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Because when they get a second Super Bowl victory in 2 weeks, we'll soon be calling them a dynasty too.
No. You have to get at least 3 championships to be a dynasty.
Okay, I guess that's
You
fair.
have to.
Maybe
You have to.
overzealous here with the 2. Okay.
It's not overzealous. You have to get 3. Everybody knows that. The Miami Heat, was that a dynasty, John?
No.
Okay, then. You have to get 3.
Fair enough. Justin, do you agree with that?
Oh,
2
yeah,
or 3?
3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have changed exactly what a dynasty is because
I mean, it's more than that. It is more than that. I do want to say, but that's my starting point is 3 championships at least, and you have to have dominance over at
correct.
least
There you go.
10 years. I think it's at bare minimum when you look at the real dynasties of NBA and NFL, because that's the only really I can pull from. I don't have them brushed up in MLB, NHL,
So the Yankees
soccer,
are a dynasty.
Tennessee.
Yep.
Well, obviously, I know that, but you know what I mean, like the integral stuff like that. NBA and NFL, I can really look back on and kind of realize what I'm talking about. There's not that many, and what they all have in common is I think at bare minimum 10 years of dominance and 3 championships. I think if you look at those 2 sports,
That's fair. I can't disagree there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
that's why I don't think the Warriors are just there yet, because they're at how many years? It's 9 years, 8 years since they won the first championship.
It's been 9.
9, so yeah, they have to get
I would consider the Warriors a dynasty.
not just yet. They still have they still have a checkbox that's not unchecked, Justin.
So Shaq and Kobe were in a dynasty?
No.
Wow.
They didn't have the dominance. How many years were they together? 4 or 5?
No, I mean they were together from
6?
96 to 2004. So
Really?
yeah, about 8-9 years.
Are you sure about that? No.
They won 3 championships
Yeah.
and went to the finals
They three-peated too, right?
4 times. They three-peated.
If you win back to back at any point, and then you win 3 altogether in a span of 10 years, I think that considers you a dynasty, which is
No, in
why
my
I consider
opinion,
the
you have to
Warriors
have-
a dynasty.
In my opinion, you have to have dominance over at least 10 years.
What
the
other
Warriors
teams
have
outside of
dominated.
New England and Bill Russell in the 1960s would qualify?
The Spurs?
That's a dynasty.
That's like 2 separate dynasties almost.
It's
Really,
the
one
same. It's
dynasty.
Greg Popovich. What do you mean? Tim Duncan was there the whole time. And Greg Pop. It's the same thing with Brady and Belichick. At least you have to have that at least on your thing. So yeah, the Celtics would be one. The Magic's Lakers would be one.
Trying
They
to
won
think how many
5
times Magic played
championships.
for Kareem.
They won 5 championships. The 80s were basically dominated by Bird and Magic. MJ would be one. I mean, not MJ, sorry, the Bulls. You know what I mean.
Listen, I think if you win 3 championships in a span of 6-7 years, you're a dynasty. San Francisco Giants in baseball won a title in 2010, 2012, and 2014.
But did they fall off a cliff?
Tim Lincecum,
They didn't make
baby.
the playoffs in the year after their first title.
No, how many? But like, because it's continued. Like, did they get back right after that?
What
Not
do
to
you mean?
winning the whole thing, but at least competing.
No, sometimes some seasons they weren't even in the playoffs a year after winning a title, and then the next season they win a championship. I think in 2011, I don't even believe they made the playoffs. I could be wrong.
We can get into that debate another time.
Yeah, that's another
We can
debate.
get
But
into
yeah,
the GOAT debate.
let's move on to the
I
game
mean, the dynasties.
that
I like
wasn't
having
really
that
a game.
debate though, the dynasty debate.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one.
So Justin, God bless you, John. Salute, my friend. Justin, I had to take it first, so this is your turn.
Oh man, that was
Let me serve you up a little bit.
yeah. Sure.
Oh man, Justin had an epiphany earlier in the season that with Brock Purdy, the 49ers weren't gonna lose again. But on
No, he
Sunday
made that
afternoon-
initial prediction with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy was still the starting quarterback, right, Justin? When you said they weren't going to lose,
Yeah.
But
Jimmy was
credit the man, he never wavered when
Yeah,
Brock
he
Purdy
didn't.
soon
He
after
didn't.
came in. And what we unfortunately got to see on Sunday afternoon was a 31-7. What word would you use to define the game? Smash mouth game where
Don't say that.
the Philadelphia
beat
Eagles
down.
dominated
They
the
beat
San
their
Francisco
ass.
49ers.
They beat.
that.
Listen, let's cut it. They whooped their ass. They
Don't
whooped
say
their
that.
ass.
No.
Whooped their candy ass.
No, they didn't. No,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Yep.
you can't. I'm sorry. And this is what pisses me off about the whole game. And when I'm seeing people say, oh, the 49ers got waxed, they got their asses handed to them. That's exactly what happens. You go into Philadelphia and you got your ass beat. No. You played a team literally with both of their hands tied behind their back. You're playing a team with their cards straight up on the table. The game was over in the first quarter. And the thing is, and it wasn't because Philadelphia did anything spectacular. And I'm sorry to break it to you guys. But I don't know if you know this, but the Eagles had their lowest offensive output all season, despite running 25 more plays. It was 7-7 most of the first half until the flags really started.
I'm throwing a flag on you right now. I'm throwing a flag. Justin, stop. No.
I think you got off.
I got you. You said it had nothing to do with the Eagles? I'm sorry. How did Brock Purdy get injured? That was Hassan Reddick. What team does he play for? What team does he play for?
Okay.
What about Josh Johnson? How did he get injured?
How did he get injured,
Justin? Justin, how did he get injured?
Yes, he got sacked.
Oh, and he plays for the.
Yes, I know.
Okay, so it was what the Philadelphia. Don't try and be.
He got hit. It happens. The fact that he got knocked out of the game completely.
Well, they're blocking him with the tight end. You don't block a guy who just had 16
It changed the entire game. I'm sorry. And this isn't me making excuses for the 49ers. No, Eagles won. That's fine. You did what you had to do because you played a team that had zero quarterback. That's fine. You did what you did. But for the most, it was 7-7 most of the first half. Flags started flying. Fourth string quarterback drops a snap. Boom. The game was over. It was 21-7 after he dropped the snap. And then the second half featured a quarterback with no UCL. I'm sorry to say, but having a torn UCL to the capacity that he did is like a soccer player running around with no ACL.
You can't forget Christian McCaffrey.
You can't move. You can't move. So I'm not going to say the Eagles didn't deserve this. I'm going to knock one thing. I'll say, wow, the Eagles really ran with the easiest road to the Super Bowl that we've seen in a very long time. Literally a champ. I'm sorry. I'm infuriated with how that game turned out, because we literally watched a football game where the game was over in the first quarter after Brock Purdy went down and Josh Johnson dropped that snap. Game was over. They weren't coming back.
Wait, Justin, aren't you the same guy who were telling me and John that these NFL football games, I just watch football, man. I eat football up, you know?
Take whatever you can get.
Yeah, that Sunday.
Like that.
You know, but you know what? You can't tell me at all that any of you guys enjoyed watching that football.
No,
the only reason that you guys would enjoy that football game is just sitting on the couch thinking, damn, Justin is probably heated right now. That's the only reason you could probably enjoy that game. It was a mess from the injuries. Forget the first Eagles touchdown drive. I'm poor coaching on that side. Should have challenged that.
Heads up.
Should have challenged that. And I'm not saying, anything could have changed. Like, I'm a big believer in the butterfly effect. One little thing changes, maybe something else doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you challenge that, a lot of things change. Eagles don't score on that first drive. I would say the San Francisco 49ers defense did a solid job up until the point that, they were on the field for 3/4 of the game.
Yeah.
The Eagles won time of possession by, I think, a whole last quarter.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why the 49ers absolutely got blown out that day, and it wasn't entirely all on them. Injuries and just bad luck really took over. I really wish the 49ers had another quarterback dressed. I wish they had 3 quarterbacks dressed for that game, because that was an absolute disaster. And it's sad because, the 49ers go into the season with Trey Lance expecting to see what their draft pick looks like. He gets hurt, out for the year. Then you get Jimmy G. You know what you're getting. He gets hurt, out for the year. Then you're going with the last pick in the NFL draft. He doesn't lose a single game. He takes you all the way to the NFC title game. And then you pretty much just show up just to take the field because you have to, because they had no quarterback at
He
at
suffered
one
a
point, pretty
complete
much.
tear.
A complete tear of the UCL. He's going to be out 6 months.
6 months.
That,
All right,
that, that'll take a
Yes.
that'll take a baseball player, at
Yeah.
least a pitcher, out a whole season.
Justin.
I feel, and you know what? I
I've-
hope you guys feel the same way. And I'm not saying this just because I rooted very hard for the 49ers. I feel very bad for that team, because that team
Okay.
fought hard all season long. I think had won 12 straight games,
They didn't lose for 3
And-
months.
and that's how you lose the season.
Yeah.
That's
All right,
rough
Justin.
way to go out.
Here's what I'm gonna say. Right. Kidding aside. All right. Kidding aside. No more jokes. I agree with you. The Eagles have the easiest road to the Super Bowl. In the playoffs and in the regular season, we forget they had a top 5, one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. I agree with you on that. I disagree with you. Even if Brock Purdy didn't get injured on that play, let's say he just fumbled the ball, he stays healthy, and the game continues. I feel like the Eagles were en route to beating the San Francisco 49ers. I maybe
They
not
win either
exactly,
way.
maybe not
Brock Purdy's not
exactly like
covering.
maybe not exactly like that, but I feel like they were going to win pretty comfortably. I thought both defenses showed up. I thought Phillies was outplaying, and the pressure was starting to come. I mean, I told you guys they're the #1 sack team in the NFL. All right, they were able to get the pressure. They've got an abundance of guys they can throw at you. It's ridiculous the amount of names that they can throw at you, the guys that they can throw at you. But I will tell you this. No, I do not feel sad for the San Francisco 49ers. Do you want to know why, Justin, I don't feel sad? Do you want to know?
Sure.
John, do you want to know? You want to know why?
They deserve to win that game.
No. I'm not sad because they did this to themselves. Not once, but twice. 2 times. Okay?
Where are you going here?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, he's gonna
I've
go
been
with
tweeting
Tom
about this
Brady route.
lately. I've been tweeting about way to spoil it, Justin. Way to spoil it.
Bro,
I've been
it
tweeting
was
about
a
this
freak
lately.
injury that happened to Brock Purdy.
Justin,
They
let the
could have
man
won this
continue.
game.
This is going to be pretty interesting here.
Whoa. I'm like the guy from the Matrix out here. I'm dodging your bullets. You're shooting at me right now, Justin. All right, because I got an unbelievable point that you cannot. There's no holes. They had the opportunity, did they not, to get Tom Brady 2 times, not once, twice. When's the last time Tom Brady's missed a game due to injury? Quick. Oh wait,
2008.
2008, where he tore his ACL in the first game of the season on an illegal hit by Bernard Pollard. Okay, that's the only time. The only other game he really missed was he was taken out in the Pittsburgh game in his first AFC Championship game, where he got injured, I think, in the first or second quarter, and Drew Bledsoe won the game. This freaking guy. Then he had, so basically, other than that, he has not missed a game. Tom Brady doesn't get hurt. And you bring up the Brock Purdy thing, my friend. They lost Trey Lance. They lost Jimmy Garoppolo. They lost Brock Purdy. They lost Josh Johnson. If you have Tom Brady, he doesn't get injured. He played through a freaking torn MCL. People like to forget this. He played through a torn MCL in the pandemic year when he won a Super Bowl for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man.
They have
Okay,
broken fingers.
He won the game against Saxonville with the gash in the middle of his throwing hand, down in the 4th quarter. Come on, man. If they picked Tom Brady the first time, we're sitting here right now. I guarantee you this. We're sitting here right now with the 49ers on their way to their 3rd Super Bowl win, doing something that no NFL team has ever done in the history of the NFL, winning 3 straight Super Bowls. I guarantee you, if Tom Brady signs with them, let me be correct. If the Shanahans agree to bring Brady on, because Brady has wanted to go. Brady contacted them the first time around and the second time around. The Shanahan said no to them because they were power hungry. They did it to themselves because they thought they were the smartest people in the room and they could get away with a below average quarterback. Well, guess what? Fate came knocking on your door and you weren't getting through to it. You've been this close on the precipice for how many years? For 4 years, minus that 1 year after the Super Bowl where they were injury ravaged. You've been on the precipice. And what has failed them every time, Justin? What has failed them? What position? What position? Tom Brady's there. Does Tom Brady fail you, Justin? Does he? Does he?
Oh, my goodness.
Come on. The agenda is clear in the offseason for the 49ers. The decks are being cleared. You call Brady. He comes in, you choose between the one of the young quarterbacks to keep, the other one you trade, whichever one you prefer for the future. Get assets, and you go win a freaking Super Bowl next year. That's the agenda. You want to win. It's right there. I can't make it any easier. It's a freaking layup, dude. It's Michael Jordan in 96, 97. Open layup. It's right there.
I think they had signed Brady the first time because a lot of people thought Brady might have been done after 2019, which wasn't true. And that was further, supported when he won a Super Bowl the following season. I'm not quite sure if the Eagles have had the easiest road to the Super Bowl a lot of people are making it out to be. First off, in the regular season, while coming into the year, they had one of the hardest schedules because of how much the Cowboys, the Giants, and even the Vikings, who they played earlier in the season, overachieved. The Eagles had actually the toughest schedule in the NFL in terms of opponents' winning percentage. The toughest. I know that sounds crazy, but with the Cowboys winning 12 games, the Giants, their division was great. That's the reason why. Against the Vikings, they humiliated them at home. And the Cowboys, 1 of 1. The game they lost, it was tough. 2 backup quarterbacks in each of those 2 games. The Giants, by a lot of people, were a pretty legitimate team that could have beaten them a 3rd time, because they're in the same division. The same way the Seahawks 49ers game was somewhat competitive. And with Jalen Hurts playing through a shoulder injury, you're not going to drop him back as much. He's not going to run the football as much. His throws surely are not as accurate, not as decisive. They annihilated the Giants. And then they play the San Francisco 49ers with, Josh Johnson and Christian McCaffrey playing quarterback for the bulk of the game. If Brock Purdy plays, I still think the Eagles win. Because they have one of, if not the best offensive line I've ever seen. Now, it's important to note...
They got away with a couple false starts, but whatever.
2 Hall of Famers.
Yeah, you want to know what I also saw, Justin? I saw Jason Kelce and co. plowing through the best defensive line, or one of the best defensive fronts in football, like it was a snow day. They were getting out at 12 o'clock, they were hyped up, and quite frankly, it made the entire game that much easier because they just controlled everything. Now, they didn't have their most yards. Justin pointed out the point before. What was the point?
What was the point?
Least yards in any game by them this season? The fact
I said their offensive output. This was their lowest offensive output all season. Plus, they had 25 more offensive snaps than the 49ers. I'll be honest, man. Listen, I understand how good this Eagles team is. I'm not knocking them one bit. But I like I said before, I really thought the 49ers had this game, and I really feel like they would have won this game had they had an actual quarterback playing. I think. And I'm not glorifying Brock Purdy. I'm not saying he's the second coming of Tom Brady, but I'm saying having a quarterback that has been working with your team for the past, 13 weeks, rather than having a guy that you just acquired, I believe, on December 19th under center, it's a massive difference. I think Josh Johnson has 9 career games started.
Impressive in 14.
He's played for almost half the teams in the NFL,
which is absolutely insane. So 9 games started. You're throwing a guy. While granted he has NFL locker room experience and all, Brock Purdy's been on the field basically the same amount of time as him, and Brock Purdy's a lot younger. So
A lot better.
and a lot better. And that's the thing. It's a big difference. You guys can say, oh, even with Brock Purdy on the field, I felt like the Eagles would have still had an edge. It's not a guarantee because, like I said, 15 minutes of time of possession given solely to the Eagles is because of all these 3-and-outs that they had because they had no offense.
They had no, I mean,
Zero.
Justin, we're not, I don't think.
But that's my thing. It's just imagine, this is the playbook. He got injured.
Throw it out. You throw it out. That's because you got to run the football.
It was all gone. And that's the thing. It was literally, like I said, the 49ers.
Justin, I'm not about to disagree with you.
No, I know that. I'm just frustrated because
I understand your frustration.
There's two hands tied behind their back. I watched that football game miserable because also Justin, at the same time, I wanted a good football game.
You latched on
championship Sunday, and I didn't get that.
You latched on to the wagon. You hung on, all right, and I respect that, and you went down with it. But at the end of the day, the wheels fell off, all right? And you were wrong.
They got shot out the sky.
You were wrong. You were wrong at the end of the day. For whatever reason, you were wrong. Well, no, right. I don't think me and John are disagreeing with you that if they had an actual competent starting quarterback on the field, that they would have put out a better product. What me and John are saying to you is, for me personally, what I saw in the first drive and what I saw when Brock Purdy was in the game for the short sample size he was, I feel like the Eagles were going to do that, man. I feel like that pass rush was just too much for that offensive line. They have up to 7 guys they can throw at you with fresh legs. That's an unbelievable amount of fresh legs to throw at you. No O-line can keep up with that. It's just, that's what I thought. And I thought Brock Purdy was going to struggle having to play the best secondary in the NFL. I felt that. And I think that they were en route to doing that.
And you know what? I believe even with all that, Shanahan would have been able to at least adjust, and he didn't have the opportunity to. So, all this conversation really means absolutely nothing because we just don't know. But honestly, I think we can all agree you wouldn't have been surprised if the 49ers won that game because they're a very good football team, very good defense, and they showed out for at least the first half while they had somewhat of a break.
So Justin, let's get to it. The mission is clear though, right?
Absolutely. Okay. If you can, and honestly, I think the Trey Lance experiment is over. If I'm them,
I think the rumors are that Tennessee is possibly the option. That's what I heard. One rumor that Tennessee they trade Lance to Tennessee. Brock Purdy is their quarterback of the future. Brady signs for 1 year.
I think that would be the best possible outcome for both. My only thing on the Tom Brady side of things, I think San Francisco needs to find themselves a legit deep threat because Tom Brady is always I feel like needed somebody that can.
He's got Kittle, Justin. He's got Kittle. That is Gronk.
Somebody that can stretch the fields for him.
And hell, Gronk could be coming back. You got Gronk and Kittle. Are you freaking kidding me? With
that would be insane. But I think
Ayuk.
I do think that'll be the perfect scenario for him if he finds himself in San Francisco. Call it 1 more year at his hometown.
You know who Trey Lance? You know who Trey Lance's game reminds me of? Former NFL MVP, the late great Steve McNair. That size, the strength, the athleticism. As passers, maybe not the most refined, but he can get better and good enough. And especially with Mike Vrabel and the defense, their ability to overachieve, I think Trey Lance would be great for them. You also got Malik Willis, though, in the equation. I don't think, let's be honest, Trey Lance is being moved. He has to earn the job in San Francisco. That's why it's good. All right, the agenda this offseason for the 49ers. It's quite clear, as Brandon said. Mm-hmm. The elephant in the room, the monkey on Kyle Shanahan's back, and the thing he regrets, I'm sure of it, is not signing Tom Brady. And quite frankly, it's, we all know what they have to do. Sign Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. You have to hope the Raiders don't poach him with Josh McDaniels. And that Tom's not bitter and wants to, pummel you in the Super Bowl next year. We'll see. The second thing.
That's an interesting point. The fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times.
This is a movie ending, Justin. This is a movie ending. This is what they write. You can't write it better in Hollywood. Plays for his favorite team growing up. Gets to win a Super Bowl right off into the sunset. His 8th Super Bowl in 11 tries. Are you freaking kidding me, dude?
Or gets rejected by his favorite team twice and then goes up against them in the Super Bowl.
They're not. If they do reject Tom Brady again, I've lost respect for Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan because don't be fooled. He has a say in that. He has a voice in that room. If you don't think Mike
Absolutely.
Shanahan does. So the Shanahans both, I would lose respect for both of them if they say no to Brady when they have seen the product for the last 4 years and what has come up short every single time.
Every single
It's
year.
not your defense, it's not your O-line, it's not your weapons, it's not your coaching, it's your freaking quarterback.
Well, Hassan Reddick was pretty good too.
He
The
was.
second thing they have to do is $16 million in cap space. I think Mike McGlinchey, pretty key at right tackle. Jimmy Ward at free safety. You want to retain this initial team because the 49ers, I think we can make the case, top 2, top 3 roster in football. You don't have a whole lot of time with this team. We see with injuries very quickly, it could snap into the second half, bottom second half of the league. So maximizing this roster of 2 years of Tom Brady, it's quite clearly the way to go. And then retaining the cast. And the third thing is keeping Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Have them compete, have them refine one another's swords, and in 2 years, when the opportunity is there for one of them to start, whoever is better gets the job, whoever doesn't is being moved somewhere else, maybe for like a 3rd or 4th round pick, because Brock Purdy's played high-level football, and Trey Lance reasonably was a top 10 pick. So the Niners are in a pretty good spot, but they better hope Tom wants to go there, because I am not quite sure if TB does. If I were him and I want to win a Super Bowl, they give me the best chance. But if Tom wants to really relinquish his inner competitor with Hunter Renfrow, Devontae Adams, McDaniels, maybe a better defense in Las Vegas in a super tough division, I think he's just as likely to sign in Las Vegas.
Dude, you'd be a fool. I mean, come on. Brady's a smart man. He can look at, we just talked about
He's
the
a competitive
AFC,
man too, Brandon.
how dominant that he is competitive, but I'll face those guys in the Super Bowl in the biggest moments. How about that? NFC is the least path of resistance. Tom has done what he needs. Does Tom really need to go through the ringer again to prove to you guys what he's capable of? No,
he doesn't. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised in the Vegas route whatsoever. Like the Josh McDaniels thing is a real pull, and at the same time, throwing to guys like Devontae, Hunter. I don't know if Waller will be there still, but potentially Waller, Josh Jacobs coming off of a career year. Your offense looks spectacular. You throw in a good quarterback, and well, forget
$20 million in cap
good.
space.
Good is an insult. Great, legendary quarterback in that fold, and you just never truly know. Hey, one more. I don't know about you, but I would love to see another AFC Championship, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, round.
Mahomes don't want that smoke though.
Nah, he does.
Mahomes don't want. Does he really? How many wins he got?
I think 2 of his 3 career playoff losses are to Tom Brady.
In his playoffs, how many times he beaten Brady, John?
I mean, you only played 2 games. There's only 3 outcomes there, friend.
I'm just saying. Well, in the playoffs, there's only 2 outcomes actually. But,
okay, well, you can either go 2-0, 0-2, or 1-1. Those are the 3 outcomes.
And he took an L.
It's a small sample size here.
Both times took an L on the biggest stages too. Just saying.
No context. Yeah, that's true.
No context.
The king of no context and
there's no king of no context. What happened.
What happened. In Carolina, what happened was that they hired Frank Reich.
Oh, boy.
I'm gonna be honest with you two guys. The Panthers have needed 2 things for half a decade now: head coach and quarterback. Frank Reich was the fall guy in Indianapolis, and quite clearly, firing your head coach after you force him to start Sam Ehlinger. And then against the Patriots, they have 1 million sacks. And then, to take the blame out on the offensive line, you fired the head coach to literally replace him with Jeff Saturday after Bill Belichick's defense annihilates your offensive line, which is rapidly aging. Not very good. Frank Reich was really impressive in Indianapolis. First year with Andrew Luck, top 5 offense. And since then, he was constantly adapting. And Philadelphia, he's inheriting Chip Kelly's team with Doug Peterson. They evolved. They won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles after Carson Wentz tore his ACL. Frank Reich is a really good play caller. Yeah, he maybe lost Jim Irsay, one of the worst owners in football's trust, because Irsay is, maybe a loose clock upstairs, but he's one of the best offensive minds in football, and a former quarterback that took the first snaps under center in Carolina. I feel like for the Panthers, a team that's probably looking to draft the quarterback in the next couple of years, unless Matt Corral becomes a pretty good player. We'll see what happens. He misses rookie season. Frank Reich is the ultimate hire. A guy that's well respected by his players, can adapt and really maximize his rushing attacks. A year ago, the Colts, with not the best offensive line, they're injury hampered, had the best running game in football, Jonathan Taylor. I think with Deontay Foreman and a couple of these different quarterbacks. We'll see who they go with. I feel like it might be Matt Corral. They can have a pretty dynamic rushing attack to go alongside DJ Moore. And when you talk about his staffs, people he's employed, Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, who is now becoming head coach maybe. He's the Eagles' defensive coordinator. They're playing in the Super Bowl. And Nick Sirianni. And Sirianni was pretty upset when his mentor got fired because Reich is a really good coach. Is he top 10? Probably not, but he's one of the better guys in the league. There's no two ways about it. I gave the Broncos an A before. I gave the Texans, I'll give them an A. For the Panthers, I'm giving the Frank Reich hire a solid B+. He's a proven offensive mind, and when you're a franchise who struggled with stability, there's not much more you can ask for, and surely nothing you can complain about here.
Well, Frank Reich is a leader of men, and he's shown that in his time with Indianapolis. Shame how he got let go. Nick Sirianni had every right to be angry about it, and he showed it in beating the Colts that one week, even though it wasn't by much, but they did win. But yeah, Frank Reich, like I said, he's a leader, and the Carolina Panthers have been looking for the right head coach for a while now. Matt Rule was clearly not the guy for the job. The question does remain the same thing for Houston. Who's the guy under center? Can that guy elevate your team? Because it's awesome to have a good head coach, but if you don't have the guys around you to elevate and to take what you're to practice what you're preaching, then it doesn't mean anything at all. So I really do hope that he does put together a good team, because the Panthers towards the end of the season started to look like the team that Brandon was hyping up in the beginning of the season. They started to show a little bit of that bright spots, the promising defense, the young talent. Now it's just finding somebody to maximize that, and I really do hope. I'm not going to project and say he will be that guy, because I don't know how confident I truly am in the Panthers organization, but I do hope Frank Reich is the guy for the job.
I mean, it's hard for me to get excited or anything for this hire. Good for Frank Reich. I think it is a good hire. I believe Steve Wilkes deserves a job, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there now. Again, Justin said what I was going to say. They still have to find their quarterback. And if we know one thing is Frank Reich struggled finding himself a quarterback in Indianapolis. So that's going to be a tough test. Sam Darnold's not the guy. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen enough. I've seen what he can do. He's not the guy, okay? He can be a good, solid backup quarterback, and that's fine. Other than that, they're in a better position than Houston, but other than that, I don't know. That division's wide open pretty much since Tom's leaving Tampa Bay. So we'll see. I guess the NFC South is going to become the real weakest division.
You look at the coaches in that division. Dennis Allen, who, we'll see. Big year for him.
We have seen.
Todd Bowles.
We've seen.
And Arthur Smith. Quite clearly, Frank Reich's the best coach in that division. They had the 9th overall pick. I hyped up earlier Anthony Richardson. Oh, man. Would Anthony Richardson be great?
This freaking guy is so...
With Frank Reich. He's the best quarterback, I think, out of this draft class.
Who are you listening to, John? Who are you listening to about this guy? Who's feeding you this information?
This is... What do you mean?
There's somebody feeding you this information that you're watching or something.
I love him. I watch more and more.
I love him.
I think if he goes to the right team, Brian Dable, Frank Reich, he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And I think arguably the best quarterback in this draft. I'm not quite sure Bryce Young being 5'11", 5'10", if he is going to be the best one. We'll see long term.
I don't like any of the quarterbacks in this draft. I really don't. I can't get on.
Brandon, you don't get on many young quarterbacks. And when you talk about Carson Wentz, look
Big
at the
Joe Burrow,
difference between,
Trevor Lawrence guy. What are you talking about?
Look at the difference between Wentz in Indianapolis and Washington. Then look at Matt Ryan, who he was 500 with. Most people viewed Matt Ryan as one of the worst quarterbacks, worst starters in the league. And he was 500 with him until Irsay literally forced him to bench him for Sam Ehlinger. Phillip Rivers, he got the most out of him. Jacoby Brissett, same thing can be said.
Phillip Rivers wasn't shot, and Phillip Rivers was actually still a solid starting quarterback.
17th best quarterback in the league. Nothing to write home about. You almost won a playoff game with Phillip Rivers.
Don't disrespect Phillip Rivers.
We're being honest here. Sometimes the truth hurts. The Panthers have negative $8 million in cap space. They have a good defense, one up-and-coming offensive line, and a pretty good coach. And in that division, that's going to be enough next season probably to win. And if Tom Brady's surely not in Tampa Bay, I think they could probably win 9 or 10 games and take a pretty step forward, build off the momentum they ended the year with. And we're going to see what they do with the 9th overall pick. Could really go
10 games is
quarterback,
tough. That's tough.
or do they continue to build up the offensive line? Because as we saw this last Sunday, the offensive line is pretty key. You're not winning a Super Bowl without it. And if you get that before the quarterback, that guy under center is going to have a much easier job.
Yes, sir.
Talking about one last coordinator, Kellen Moore was fired or let go, mutually parted ways with the Cowboys.
He was, yeah. Call it what you want. Put a bow on it. He was fired.
It's funny to me how Cowboy fans, whenever things don't go right, we always blame the offensive coordinator. This was not Matt Patricia. I know some Cowboy fans made out to be that because Kellen Moore is maybe a little bit predictable. But the Cowboys with him had a ton of success, even with Cooper Rush. The guy did a pretty good job.
Do you know the stats, John, of how much success they've had under Kellen Moore?
Do you have him?
I mean, I think since Kellen Moore took over, the only team to have more yards since that time was Kansas City. They're second, the Dallas Cowboys.
Sounds about right. Even this year, with Cooper Rush starting 4 or 5 games, they continue to be, one of the better offenses in the league. They finished.
It wasn't Kellen Moore's fault.
Go
ahead.
I actually have some stats for you guys if you want to hear the stats for Kellen Moore.
Shoot him.
As offensive coordinator from 2019 to 2022, second in total offense, second in yards per game, third in points per game, third in total first downs, third in EPA play, and fourth and third down percentage.
Yeah. What this move comes down to, I was going to say is, listen, I'm a big Dak fan. I'm a big Dak supporter. I think I rate Dak pretty fairly. I'm not like, I rate him. He's not a top 10. He's right outside. I think that's fair. I can sit here and say, and I know I got on John when we last talked or 2 episodes ago about his Dak thing. That was just me being emotional and trying to defend Dak. I had seen so much Dak hate before we even recorded that show that I was just fed up at that point. I want to apologize to John. I can admit Dak had a terrible game. It wasn't Kellen Moore's fault. There were guys running open in that Dallas Cowboys game, and Dak straight up just missed them. I think what this move really has to do with is Mike McCarthy has a lot of power in Dallas. He's got Jerry Jones's ear. He's his drinking buddy. And I think that he's whispering and saying, I can do this. He called plays in Green Bay for 13 years or something. He had success early on, and then later in the years, Aaron Rodgers obviously famously said that this offense is a little archaic, and after a couple of bad seasons, he was out the door. So, I don't know. I think Mike McCarthy is a good head coach. I think he's average, maybe slightly above average than other guys that you would take over, some other guys. But in terms of, I don't know, is he going to be as creative as Kellen Moore? Is his offense still archaic? I don't know. They were having great success. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Having great success with Kellen Moore. This just sniffs of Mike McCarthy having Jerry Jones's ear and him wanting the power and the call plays, in my opinion.
Listen, I've been saying for a while, I feel like Kellen Moore is a little bit overrated. Maybe looking at those numbers, maybe I'm just speaking off of the eyeball test, and not really watching too much of Cowboys football, so I'll admit to that. I guess that's the thing, but I think this is a good move for at least Justin Herbert. As far as this guy's gonna fly up the MVP votes very fast with Kellen Moore as his OC. Considering what Kellen Moore did with Dak Prescott, and I'm not as high on Dak Prescott, and I do believe that Justin Herbert is an elite quarterback in this league, then, sky's the limit. Now, Kellen Moore needs to prove a lot come postseason time because I anticipate this Chargers team to be there. Mm-hmm. So it's time to see what your play calls look like when you got a real, superstar quarterback under the center and, those superstars on that team to help you. Even though the Cowboys were loaded with stars, but
that's what I was about to bring up, Justin. Is I think we can look at the Chargers and say I think the Chargers have a better offense than the Cowboys.
Yeah, they have a better offense. So we'll see.
The Cowboys have CD. Other than that, they got a 33-year-old coming off an injury, coming off his couch playing. Noah Brown, Michael Gallup coming off a torn freaking ACL. He was a good receiver, but again,
Tony
injury.
Pollard's
Tony
injured.
Pollard got injured.
Mike
He's great.
Williams and
Yep.
Keenan Allen are.
Zeke is freaking shot. We all know this. Dalton Schultz is good. Everett is just as good. You got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, like you said. You got Austin Eckler, who I think led the league in touchdowns, in total touchdowns. He had 18 touchdowns. Kellen Moore is gonna find a lot of creative plays to use him. The offensive line is solid. Rashawn Slater, he got injured, but he's a great left tackle. So I believe he's gonna have success. Like I said, it wasn't Kellen Moore play calls that screwed him against San Francisco. There were guys open. Dak missed them.
Yeah. Kellen Moore is not the issue. And the interesting thing to watch here is the Cowboys are going to have to find a new offensive coordinator. Maybe the play caller is Mike McCarthy.
It's Mike McCarthy.
Kellen Moore is going to get a top 5 quarterback who is younger than Dak, a team that desperately wants and needs him. And the Cowboys, meanwhile, they have many issues, and they're clearly not good enough. So for Kellen Moore, he's in a perfect setting. And it's kind of like the Frank Reich hire, who has more success, the Colts or the Panthers now. For the Chargers, this was the first step for them. Now, I'm not still the biggest Brand Staley guy, but swapping out Lombardi for one of the better offensive coordinators in football, a guy getting some head coaching looks, and Kellen Moore is a massive win. I mean, they literally could not take anything down the field because they didn't have the speed at wide receiver. And even with Mike Williams, he's more a possession guy. The next step is taking a guy in the draft who can eat up 25 carries a game. Austin Eckler is really good as a receiving back, but he's never had a 20-carry game in the NFL. So you get someone that can spell him, and you get a speedy wide receiver, I think, in the first round. And then you pair that up with Josh Palmer as your wide receiver 4, and Keenan Allen could be number 2. That is going to take them to the level they need to be at. And in this, Sean Payton now, Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, and whatever the Oakland or the Las Vegas Raiders do, that this is exactly what they need to do. The first step. But now it's on Tom Telesco to draft better. This team hit on Justin Herbert, but outside of that, they have not drafted too well in the last couple of years. So it's time for them to step up, address some of the offensive deficiencies, and hopefully get healthy. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. It never does for the Chargers, but one could hope.
Hopefully the Wild Wild West that lives up to its name, because they definitely didn't this past season.
Maybe this is the year. Justin,
Just
Knicks
staring at
Lakers.
Tumbleweed.
What happened?
The Knicks I feel like free throws are such a big problem with the New York Knicks, man. Jesus Christ, we can't hit big free throws when it matters most too. But I didn't see the tail end of the game, so I can't really point that out. But Knicks were in it. They were down 114 to 108 and pushed it to OT. Man, this has been a big problem with this team. We'll have the lead later in the stretch. We'll have the game in the palm of our hands, and we just give it away. Our team is talented enough to be a top 5 team in the East. I'd even argue, had it not been for a bunch of those L's that we've taken with double-digit leads, we'd probably be a top 4 team in the East right now. And I'm not saying top 4 as in like with the people that we have on our squad. I'm saying top 4 and just record-wise. Yeah, we have the team capable of getting there. So we got to close games, man. We struggle to we don't have that closer. I guess Jalen Brunson tries his best. And he does what he can. I mean, do put up 37 tonight. I love Brunson. But still missing something. Still missing a piece. And we all know that. I'm happy seeing my team play good basketball, but just one piece. I don't know exactly what that is. I'm not going to.
I know what it is.
It's
RJ Barrett actually developing and being somewhat consistent.
Well,
we talked about RJ a little bit in the offseason. RJ Barrett is supposed to be the piece. And every single season, vaguely with RJ, he doesn't have an elite skill. So he has 2 good months for his standards, 20 points per game on inefficient shooting, 2 bad months, and 2 mediocre months, which is like 16, 17 points per game on 43% shooting. So as a 3-point shooter, he's not very good. Stands still, he's solid. Not a very good finisher, hasn't really improved that. Defensively, he's good, but he's not so good where he's making such a huge impact. He's good in transition. The Knicks, dude, with how well Brunson has played this year, and the free throws were a little bit less of an issue in this game. The one thing that they're missing is a star wing, which is exactly what RJ was drafted, extended, and hyped up to be. I had Knick fans telling me this last summer that he was better than the guys like Franz Wagner, who actually can finish at the rim, shoot well, and have a good feel for the game. And so I get a little bit frustrated. I don't think RJ is ever going to be an all-star. I don't think he's quite good enough. I think he's a fine starting wing that many people somewhat prop up to be, the player that, he's going to live up to the pedigree. I don't think he ever will. That's exactly what the Knicks need. And that in this league is invaluable. a superstar or just star level wing that can win you games and will take advantage of the mismatches. In this game, 13 points on 13 shot attempts, all of 3 from 3. I'm tired. I'll be honest with you. There's no excuses for Barrett. He's young. He's 22. He's well compensated. Will be soon. You bring in the point guard. Randall stepped up. Man, I'm out on RJ. I've been on for a little bit. Do you think he'll ever be an all-star?
He's one of those players where I feel like he's capable of having an all-star campaign. I'm not saying he's going to be a 7-time all-star, but maybe a 1, maybe 2. But like you said, I feel like he's gotten better every year to me. At least his statistics has gotten better. I understand what you mean, but by the 2-month stretch of very good basketball and then a 2-month stretch of average to so inconsistent basketball. So I've seen that. I do have my concerns as well because I've watched Donovan Mitchell drop 71 not too long ago, and I'm like, damn, if we would have had that with this group of guys, maybe we'd be actually doing something better than what we already are. So I don't know. I don't want to say the jury's out on RJ because he is only 22 years old, and it's hard for me to say, oh, this guy's not going to develop into something because you never know. One offseason, I mean, look at Julius Randle. Did you expect him to be an all-star coming to New York? Probably not. Did you expect him to average 27 and 10 and 5? No, probably not. So all it takes is one offseason that just might change everything for the guy. That's me looking at it as a glass half full kind of thing because I'm not trying to be as negative as some of my other fellow Knicks fans. But yeah,
we're seeing it now with Lauri Markkanen.
Huh?
We're seeing it now with Lauri Markkanen, where highly hyped up top 7 draft pick, struggle in Chicago, partially due to injuries, also coaching, and it wasn't until he got an opportunity, a fresh slate in Utah with a really good offensive coach, that Markkanen this year has been one of the best finishers in basketball. Yeah. He can't play make, but he's scoring 25 a game on incredible shooting. With RJ, I think it's a little bit similar.
So that's a great point. And like I mentioned, 22 years old, the guy hasn't even hit his prime yet. He's still a baby in this league. There's people entering the league at 21, 22. So, like I said, he's still a baby. I don't want to. I mean, he signed for a while. We extended the guy, so who's to say what he might be in the next year or two? But he's here, and unless there's an absolute stud available, he will be here for the long haul. So whatever judgments you have on RJ, just pray that the guy progresses and turns into the 3rd pick that we actually thought we were getting,
Why would I pray for you and your Knicks?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't care about your team either, so don't worry about it.
I don't care. We got a dub and you took an L today, so what are we talking about?
That's okay. Our teams are both mid at best.
Whoa.
We're better than you still. What are you talking about?
Heat were a shot away from the NBA Finals last year, and they could have beaten Steph, I think.
Okay, that's last year. I'm saying this year.
In the finals, 2 years before that.
Chief.
I'm saying this year.
Chief.
Sure, they're above the
Chief, call me when you win an NBA Finals.
2 games.
Call me when you win an NBA Finals, because I've seen 3.
Okay, call me when you don't have a super team to do it.
06?
That's so long ago, bro. Come on, man.
Oh,
come on. That was an age where super teams weren't a thing, bro. Super teams weren't the thing, man.
That's what defines the Heat, my man. That 06.
It was like a year before Boston teamed up.
Yeah.
Whatever.
1 year.
Listen, you want to take shots at my team? I'll take shots at yours too.
Yeah, but your shots are pew pew. Mine are freaking rocket launchers.
No, yours don't hurt me because I've been dealing with this for my whole life, so it's fine.
We did talk about it though. The Knicks, the current position they're in, is way better than where it was 2.5, 3 years ago before the 2021 season.
I want to say this to you, John. All this critique about all this criticism that you give Tom Thibodeau and what Brandon gives Tom Thibodeau, I'm here to tell you that, for somebody that's been a Knicks fan for 20 years of his life, he's the best head coach that we've had in my lifetime.
Since Pat Riley?
I'm 24, so take out the Van Gundy, everything after Van Gundy. He's been the best head coach since then. So, in all honesty, the one thing that I want you guys to understand, like it's so quick for people to be like, "Oh, it's Tom Thibodeau, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So we may get another head coach that could completely tear this shit to shreds. All this progress that we've made. This is a completely different Knicks squad where we can actually say with confidence our team can compete and can actually make the playoffs, maybe consistently now.
They're a star away.
Yeah, so that's a step. And yeah, Tom Thibodeau has his flaws, but show me a coach that doesn't have flaws,
I was never negative on top. I don't know. I'm not in that category.
My bad. Then maybe
I was homeboy over there.
I know John was very critical of Tom Thibodeau, and that's all I wanted to get across because watching my Knicks team play this year, and we've had our ups and downs, but I really don't think our team is that bad, and Tom Thibodeau is the one to thank for it because if he doesn't walk into the building, I don't know what direction our team is.
Yeah, and he's done a very good job with limitations in the regular season. I'm hard on Thibodeau because he's one of the worst playoff coaches in the league. His lack of he's so fixated on what works in the regular season when they go so much size, not as much shooting, and then things go south. There's no adjustment. There's no difference. There's no variation. So, like, the regular season in part's about winning games, but it's also about testing things out for the playoffs. And I feel like while he's a smart, good coach, and the principles he lays are quality, Tom Thibodeau doesn't have that foresight long-term to prepare for a playoff series, getting different looks. Now, this Knicks team is better than the one in 2021. They're probably not going to finish the top 4 seed. It's important to see what they do at the downline. Saddiq Bey is one player, a shooter who's really struggling in Detroit, who's on the radar, and maybe he's kind of just a fresh start away from being that shooter the Knicks signed Evan Fournier to be. So with Thibodeau, I'll give him a little bit of credit for the season, but when they make the playoffs and probably get swept in the first round, we'll come back to this conversation. And I'll be like, look, Thibodeau's solid. He's not bad, but we know what he is, and it's probably not a top 15-ish coach. But he's still done a nice job this year, and there's no two ways about it.
Just thank you for saying get swept in the because that's what's going to happen. You're going to get bounced.
Well, the Brunson last year in the playoffs, he was special, man.
I don't give a crap. You're getting bounced in the first round.
Well, yeah.
You're not going that far either. Don't worry about it. We'll be watching the NBA Finals together, Brandon.
Oh, that's fine, but we'll get farther than you.
That's fine. We'll still be watching the conference finals together.
The Heat have one of the 4 worst offenses in basketball. I think they're a first-round exit, too.
Who? Talking about the Heat?
And by the way, I didn't
see Jimmy hasn't showed up yet.
RJ didn't play in the last 12 minutes of today's game.
Wow, really?
John.
Was it injury?
No, but he didn't speak to the reporters after the game. We saw a little bit of Julius Randle last year. And a lot of Knicks fans are saying, why is Tibbs employed as the first mention? I didn't see the end of the game. I'm going to watch in a little bit, but that's kind of my point with RJ. Maybe I came at him hard at the right time, so to speak, but the Heat, Brandon, they're in an interesting spot, 29-23. I think they're going to make a move to the deadline, which is trading Kyle Lowry, because, Kyle Lowry, the contract hasn't really gone to plan.
For what? For what?
D'Angelo Russell?
Who?
D'Angelo Russell?
Oh, my God.
I think he'd be an upgrade,
He'd be an upgrade. What? How much of an upgrade?
He has a pulse offensively.
That's great.
It's a good start.
Awesome. Freaking awesome. That's not what we need. We're stuck.
It's an upgrade, I think.
We'll get. That's fine. Tyler Hero got his money. That's cool.
Well, Tyler Hero's been. It's not this. I think Hero's had a very good season.
That's
Tyler
great.
Hero's
That's
still
freaking great. I don't care. He needs to take the step to be the guy. I'm sorry. That's the step he needs to take.
I don't think any of us expect him to be that guy.
He expects it. So he doesn't need anybody else to expect it if he expects it from himself. And I'm pretty sure that guy has got a lot of confidence in himself.
Every NBA player does. I
mean,
mean,
but you just know, you look at Tyler Hero, the way he talks, dresses, that guy's got the swagger about himself.
RJ's got swagger, bro, and RJ's not even the top 3 player in the playoff team.
That's why I'm saying, well, if you got that belief, well, here's your opportunity to go prove that you are that guy. And guess what? We get to witness it. We get to see you. You get to put out a stat line, and we get to look at that. Those are records of events. You did that on the court. That little thing, you did that. So if it's bad, it's bad. He could be playing. That's great. I need him to take that step. We expect greatness, bro. This is Wade County. He ain't coming back.
Sorry, Brandon. There's nothing great happening for Miami this year.
Oh, well, this year
He's been arguably the best player offensively. Bam's been really good as well. Taking
that's because that's because the playoffs haven't started, John, and Jimmy's not in playoff mode.
They're 7 points better per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. I think Kiara's a little bit underappreciated by you because there's a clear ceiling on him. He's probably going to be CJ McCollum. Like, I'm not going around saying...
That's freaking awesome. I love hearing that. I freaking love hearing that. Oh, man. I love hearing that.
Probably CJ McCollum. That's a really
good player. I love hearing that. I don't know if you can tell the sarcasm in my voice. I love hearing that. That's great. That's freaking great. We could have had Donovan Mitchell, and now we're stuck with CJ McCollum. No disrespect.
I don't know if you could have.
Yeah, we could have.
I mean, it could dream.
Godfather for a reason.
Is there anything else you guys would like to add to this discussion before I wrap it up? And our next NBA topic, we're going to be talking about Ben Simmons and a little bit of Lonzo Ball. Maybe we talk about Lonzo now. I don't even know.
I know John is going to want to say something about Aaron Rodgers next episode too. So
yeah.
Well, yeah, we got a couple fun things that we could talk about. I think that
no football this week, guys. No football.
Yeah, Pro Bowl. Guys, I'm pretty sad.
We got the Pro Bowl. You're not going to watch the Pro Bowl, Justin?
No.
Am I going to sit down? Am I going to?
Good for him.
Yeah. I'm not watching, man. I'm sorry. Flag football is not my thing.
You say you sit down for anything.
Kenny Pickett should have been in that thing.
You say you sit down for anything.
Declined. He has better endeavors.
I am looking forward to the skills challenge, though. I like the skill, like seeing what quarterback can throw the farthest, run, dodge, but whatever.
I'm happy for Tyler Huntley, though.
Doesn't
pretty cool to see him.
I'm not. I cried. What the hell has the Pro Bowl become? I mean,
it's so bad. It is so bad.
Come on.
They should just do away with it completely. Nobody wants to see that, man. Nobody wants to see that.
If somebody's gonna sit, that's fine. But like, come on, really? Trent Huntley, Lamar's not gonna.
I'll tell you,
Lamar's injured, but you know what I mean. Like, what the hell are we doing, dude? We're just giving out trophies now.
Baseball does the best job when it comes to their All-Star break.
Oh yeah, I would agree. It's actually a pretty fun weekend.
Up
and away.
With all that being said, that'll wrap up episode number 70 of the Wise Guys podcast. We've been doing this for about 5 months.
That's crazy, man. I'm
5 months? No, longer than that, John. We were doing this for starting in June.
Yeah,
that's 6.
Started in June.
7, 8 months.
Wow,
almost 8. Almost.
Yeah, that's how it works.
We're getting old.
We're sticking to it, guys. 70 episodes.
John's getting gray, dude. What's going on, man? Oh my god.
Yo, by the time we maybe hit episode 150, I might finally have a beard.
No, you won't.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon.
It's all right. We'll get in person one day to record a show. That's got to be a goal of ours. John's like, let's wrap it up. He's like the guy behind the camera.
Get this thing on the road. We can get it on the road. We'll see, man. With all that being said, it'll wrap up the episode. And as always, we'll see you next time. Peace.
Stay classy.
Spider-Man.